All right. Hello. I know the stream says it's unlisted. That's supposed to be public. Done. Save. Thank you. All right, let's share this to Twitter. Alrighty. So I'm gonna wait till a couple people get here. Mostly Zeta. And we're going to start with A Night Before Christmas. So let me flip over to that page. Um, huh. Yay, Christmas bedtime stories. Okay, I'm glad you're here, Zeta. I'm gonna start with The Night Before Christmas, just so you can hear that before you go to bed, because that's like a family tradition. Um, then I'll move on to other stories, and I might wrap around back to this. Hello! Alright. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon will be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there rose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. I flew to the window and flew like a flash. I tore open the shutters and threw up my sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave a lustre of the midday to the objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. But the little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick. Oh, that is perfectly fine. I am glad. Hopefully I won't laugh too loud at anything. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. The top of the porch to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up on the housetop courses they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then when a tinkling I heard on the roof, and prancing and pawing of each little hoof, as I drew in my head, and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot, and a bundle of toys he had flung on his back. He had looked like a peddler just opening his pack. Hello, Euro. No minds of lurking. Thank you for joining in. His eyes how they twinkled, his dimples how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was white as snow. Probably live stream because you can't go back and edit. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, and turned with a jerk. And laying a finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, and gave his team a whistle, and away they all flew like the down on a thistle. But I heard him explain, ere he drove out of sight, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. So that was the typical one we read every year. I'm gonna read a few more. Let's see here. This one is called The Mitten. I hope it's not too picture-based, because this is a picture book. But I'm gonna read it. Once there was a boy named Nicky who wanted his new mittens made from wool white as snow. At first his grandmother, Baba, did not want to knit white mittens. If you drop one in the snow, she warned, you'll never find it. But Nicky wanted snow-white mittens, and finally Baba made them. After she finished, she said, when you come home, first I will look to see if you are safe and sound, but then I will look to see if you still have your snow-white mittens. So off Nicky went, and it wasn't long until one of his new mittens dropped in the snow and it was left behind. A mole, tired from tunneling around, discovered the mitten and burrowed inside. It was cozy and warm and just the right size, so he decided to stay. A snowshoe rabbit came hopping by. He stopped to admire his winter coat. It was then that he saw the mitten, and he wiggled in, feet first. The mole didn't think there was room for both of them, but when he saw the rabbit's big kickers, he moved over. Sorry about that. And next a hedgehog came snuffling along. Having spent the day looking under wet leaves for things to eat, he decided to move into the mitten to warm himself. The mole and the rabbit were bumped and jostled, but not being ones to argue with someone covered in prickles, they made room. As soon as the hedgehog disappeared into the mitten, a big owl, attracted by the commotion, swooped down. When he decided to move in also, the mole, the rabbit, and the hedgehog grumbled, but when they saw the owl's glinty talons, they let him in. I would too. Up through his snow appeared a badger. He eyed the mitten and began to climb in. The mole and the rabbit, the hedgehog and the owl were not pleased. There was no room left, but when they saw his daggers, they gave him the thumb. It started snowing, but the animals were snug in the mitten. A waft of warm steam rose in the air, and a fox trotting by stopped to investigate. Just the sight of the cozy mitten made him feel drowsy. The fox poked his muzzle in. When the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, and the badger saw his shiny teeth, they gave the fox lots of room. A great bear lumbered by. He spied the mitten all plumped up. Not being one to be left out in the cold, he began to nose his way in. The animals were packed tightly as could be, but what animal would not argue with a bear? I wouldn't argue with a bear either. The mitten swelled and stretched. It was pulled and budged, too many times its size, but Baba's good mitten held fast. Along came a meadow mouse, no bigger than an acorn. She wiggled into the one space left, and made herself comfortable on top of the great bear's nose. The bear, tickled by the mouse's whiskers, gave an enormous sneeze. Ah, shoo! The force of the sneeze shot the mitten up in the sky, and scattered the animals in all directions. On his way home, Nicky saw the white shape in the distance. It was the lost mitten, silhouetted against the blue sky. He ran to catch his snow-white mitten. He saw Baba's face in the window. First she looked to see if he was safe and sound, and then she saw that he still had his new mittens. And now she is looking confused at why that one mitten is so much bigger than the others. And that is the story of the mitten. I'm gonna adjust a little. My leg's going numb. And next, we are going to read The Wild Christmas Reindeer. Tika was excited and a little afraid. This year, Santa had asked her to get the reindeer ready to fly on Christmas Eve. Tika had never done this before, and she wanted everything to be perfect. Tika lived up in the Arctic, in the shadow of Santa's winter. Oh, sorry about that. Tika lived up in the Arctic, in the shadow of Santa's winter farm. The last of the snow geese had flown to the south, and everyone's mind was on Christmas. The workshop was alive with the sounds of saws sawing, hammers hammering, and brushes painting, as they all worked to have the toys and presents ready for delivery on Christmas Eve. Tika knew it was time for her to go in search of the reindeer. They had been out in the tundra, wild and free, since last Christmas, and Tika was sure they wouldn't want to go back to the winter farm to train. She would have to be strong and firm. At last she found them. Bramble and Heather, Windswept and Lichen, Snowball and Craig, Twilight and Tundra. Tika took a deep breath and shouted out, "Let's go! Move! Move! Move!" The reindeer were bewildered by Tika's voice. Their heads went up to see who this loud creature was. But they let her herd them together, and headed back towards the winter farm. Tundra gave her the most trouble. Tika didn't know that he considered himself the leader, and was not used to being bossed around. He liked to stay next to Twilight, but she was separated from him, and running near the front. When they got to the barn, Tika put them in different stalls. Tundra snorted impatiently. Adjusting again. By the next morning, when Tika went into the barn, all the reindeer were restless and upset. Licton was frightened of Craig, who kept nipping at him. Bramble was worried. She drove Heather wild. And Twilight kept calling out to Tundra, who was just plain angry and stamping his hoofs. Tika groomed each reindeer. She wanted them to look sleek and glossy for Santa. One by one she brushed and combed their coats, and pushed and pulled at their tangled manes. She brushed so long and hard that their ears started to turn pink. Tika took the reindeer outside. Now she was ready for the real training to begin. Snowflakes danced in the air as she tried to stand them in 2 lines and put on their harnesses. But they wouldn't stay lined up. She had put Tundra in the back with Heather instead of in the front with Twilight, so he kicked out at Heather, who then bolted into Bramble. Tika scolded the reindeer. "Don't move," she cried. But they all ran off with a wild-eyed, and she had to go after them and bring them back. Gonna block this. The next day, Tika harassed the reindeer in the barn. Oh my goodness. The next day, Tika harnessed the reindeer in the barn before taking them out to the snow. Everything went right until she got them lined out outside, and tried to steer them first to the left and then to the right to make the sleigh fly. They would need to pull together smoothly, but everything went wrong. Tundra crashed into Heather, Snowball blew up at Bramble, Windswept knocked over Twilight, and then Licton knocked Antlers with Greg. Welcome, Kitty. I'm glad you love this story. Stop, Tika cried, as she watched the reindeer paw the air. Unhook, she shouted, as they tried to free their long antlers. Then Licton and Craig fell over in the snow. The harder they pulled, the more their antlers locked. The reindeer were frantic, and Tika only made things worse by yelling at them. I'm sorry if you can hear any festivities going on in the background. Tundra and Heather rushed to help, but the antlers did not break free. Windswept nudge at Licton, and Bramble ran to help Craig. But the more they tried to help, the more they got tangled up in themselves. Their necks strained and their muscles bulged, but their antlers did not bulge. Tika wailed, "Oh, please, it's almost Christmas Eve." But the reindeer could not move. A frosty silence hung in the air. Tika looked at the tangled reindeer, once so bold and free, and began to cry. "It's my fault," she said. "I spent all my time yelling at you instead of helping. I'm sorry." And one by one she gave each reindeer a hug. "Tomorrow," she said, "we'll go to work in a new way. No yelling, no screaming, and no bossing, I promise. Let me try to help you get free." The reindeer listened to this new voice. Heather's eyes sparkled. Craig crackled, uh, Craig cracked a reindeer grain. Bubble, Bramble giggled, and Snowball sighed. Tundra laughed, and Twilight smiled. The more they laughed, the more they shook. The more they shook, the more their antlers rattled and rubbed. And before Tika could do anything, she heard a sprung sound, and it was the antlers jiggling free. Quietly, Tika led the reindeer back to the barn. She sleeked their coats and gently brushed their ears, and combed out their manes. Tundra nuzzled her neck. The next day, the reindeer were lined up in 2 lines, ready for harness. Twilight and Tundra leading the line. They practiced turning left, they practiced turning right. Tika directed them softly. Tundra pulled for Twilight, and Bramble was gentle to lift them. Windswept helped Heather, and Snowball nestled against Craig. Together they all practiced long and hard. They didn't even notice it was getting dark, and they almost didn't hear the jingle in the distance. It was Santa standing by the sleigh, piled high with presents, ready to go. Now the reindeer were ready too. Tika had led them to the sleigh. Santa smiled and nodded his thanks. Then he climbed aboard and waved to Tika, who watched as the wild reindeer rose up together, carried off his sleigh to the night. And that is it for the Christmas reindeer. I'm gonna take a sip of my water here. I don't know if Atlas is watching, but okay. Again, I'm really sorry if you can hear anything in the background. Um, and if you can, that's good news. If you can't, good. All right. Next story. Trouble with trolls. You're welcome, kitty. My name is Trevor, and I have trouble with trolls. It all happened one day in early spring, when I decided to visit my cousin, who lives on the other side of Mount Baldy. It takes all morning to climb up the mountain, but then I fly down the other side on my skis. Um, it all happened one day in early spring, when I decided to visit my cousin, who lives on the other side of Mount Baldy. It takes. I just read that. I'm sorry. My dog, Tuffy, and I walked up the path until we reached the place where the last of the old trees stood, and that's where the trouble with trolls began. As we walked through the trees, something scuttled by. Tuffy ran after it, and I heard a yelp. There was Tuffy, caught tight in the arms of a troll. I was certain that's what he was, with his long furry tail, big ears, and one gold earring. The troll squealed and growled, "I want dog." Me too, little troll, me too. He waggled his ears back and forth at me. Then I had an idea. Maybe I could trick this greedy troll. "Go ahead, take the dog. I've got my beautiful mittens." And I reached up and warmed my ears, as if I couldn't do without my mittens. The troll's eyes darted back and forth from Tuffy to my mittens, but it was too much. He had to have them. He dropped Tuffy and grabbed my mittens and ran off. I was so pleased about tricking the troll that I didn't notice that Tuffy was missing again, until I came face to face with the second troll. This one was rocking with glee, his long nose buried in Tuffy's warm fur. "I got dog." I shrugged. "Oh, you can have the dog," I said. "Don't take my favorite pom-pom hat." I fluffed it up and dusted my nose with it. The troll's eyes lit up. He snatched the hat and scurried away as fast as he could go. What a morning! I had lived on Mount Baldy all my life, and I had never heard of anyone seeing a troll. It was time to take steps. "Tuffy," I ordered. "From now on you follow me." What I didn't know was the third troll was sneaking up behind us. I heard a noise. Whoop! This troll had This troll had grabbed Tuffy by the tail and was pointing to a big iron pot. "Pull! Pull!" she cried. I slipped off my sweater when she wasn't looking. "Phew!" I said. That leaves my special puller." I put a rock down the neck of my sweater and pulled it up. I put a rock down the neck of my sweater and pulled it by the arms to show how it worked. Trolls are dim, but this one was smart enough to see that my sweater was just the thing to drag her pot. She scampered away. With it, Tuffy and I listened to the bong, bong, bong of the pot bouncing down the mountain. Now we could see the top of Mount Baldy. What a relief! What we didn't know was that we were walking toward double trouble. As Tuffy and I squeezed between two boulders, twin trolls jumped out. "Ha-ha!" they bellowed together and pounced on Tuffy. Damn, these trolls really want this dog. This time, I was ready. I saw their pointy little heads and knew just what to do. Off came my boots. I dangled them in the air. Imagine watching a dog and ignoring these. Instantly, the twin trolls dropped Tuffy and leaped for my boots. As they disappeared into the distance, I looked down at Tuffy. The top of the mountain was close. "I'm not taking any chances. I'm going to carry you the rest of the way." Each step was harder. I held Tuffy tightly and kept going. When we reached the top, all 5 trolls were waiting. We want dog, they bellowed, and ran toward us. In the scuffle, they got Tuffy away from me. I closed my eyes to keep back the tears. Then I knew what to do. I reached down and unbuckled my skis. I held them so the sun would sparkle their shiny paint. And I shook them so the trolls could hear the tiny bells. I waved them through the air, making a swoosh swoosh sound. Finally, I whispered as if it were a big secret, I can fly with these. Fly! The trolls roared. How fly? I picked up my ski poles, and I blew on my hands to warm them. I'll need my mittens to show you. The troll, with the big ears, threw my mittens over. I can't fly unless I can see, I said reluctantly. I'll need my hat to keep the wind from blowing my hair and my eyes. The troll with the long nose tossed me my pom-pom hat. Look, I said, shivering in the wind. Flying is easy, but I can't do it without my sweater. And that's final. The other troll stared at the troll with my sweater. She hesitated, but she gave it to me. I put it on and positioned my skis in the snow. But even the trolls could see that my feet wouldn't fit into the binding. I really need those boots, I said reassuringly to the twins. Now I had everything back. My mittens, my hat, my sweater, my boots. I stood at the top of Mount Baldy, ready to go. I held a piece of yarn high in the air to test the wind for flying. It was too much for those greedy trolls. Fly, 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 they clamored. I need you to push me. Can't push, they cried. Hold dog. Okay, I said, sighing. I'll hold the dog. The trolls gave me one giant push. Fly, 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 they shouted at me. As we flew down the mountain, I could hear the trolls' cries changed to wails of dog, dog, dog. I looked back to see they were I looked back. All I could see was a pile of trolls, shoving and pushing each other furiously around the snow, arms flying, heads bumping. Tuffy and I made it safely down the mountain, and the trolls have never been seen again. But if you travel over the top of Mount Baldy in the early spring, you can see white cotton grass, waving wildly in the wind. It's all that left from the day I had with the trouble of the trolls. And that is it for that story. We are about halfway through the stories now. So I'm going to take a small break. Maybe get in my jammies. Maybe just be here. I don't know. But I'm just gonna take a small break, let my voice rest a little bit, and it'll probably be 5 minutes. Five. Ooh, that's a percent sign, not a 5. Alright. I shall be right back. All right, I am back. I don't know if that was 5 minutes or a little bit older, but okay. Had to get caught up on some messages with Atlas. I like this because it has the sheet music in here too. I never really took the moment to like stop and actually read it, but all right. Sippy sip. Thank you. Hey, you should be asleep. Santa's not gonna come if you don't go to sleep, Zeta. Oh, I should. On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. On the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 2 turtle doves and a partridge in a pear tree. On the third day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the fourth day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the fifth day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 5 gold rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the sixth day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 6 geese a-laying, 5 golden rings, 4 collie birds, sorry, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the seventh day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 golden rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the 8th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 8 maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 golden rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the 3rd day of Christmas, on the 9th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 9 drummers drumming, 8 maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 golden rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. I'm sensing a rhythm here. On the 10th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 10 pipers piping, 9 drummers drumming, 8 maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 golden rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the 11th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 11 ladies dancing, 10 pipers piping, 9 drummers drumming, 8 maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 golden rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. Okay. And the 12th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 12 lords a-leaping, 11 ladies dancing, 10 pipers piping, 9 drummers drumming, 8 maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 golden rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. And that's it for that story. That's not the song. It's totally a song. It hurts not to sing the song. And a partridge in a pear tree. Alright. This next story is called The Hat. A Little Hedgehog. Winter was on the way. Lisa took her woolen clothes out of the chest and carried them outside. She was hanging them up in the fresh air when a strong wind blew one of her stockings off the line. A curious hedgehog found it. What's going on? I thought I just heard something. Anyway, this is why I should put that on Do Not Disturb. Oh, a curious hedgie found it and poked his nose in. When he pulled out, the stocking was stuck on his prickles. How embarrassing, the hedgie thought. The mother hen came by with her chicks. Cackle, cackle, she clucked and laughed. What's that on your head, Hedgie? Why, it's my new hat, he told her. Isn't it beautiful? The mother hen cocked her head as if she had an idea, and then ran off. Hedgie saw the nosy gander looking down at him. Honk, honk. Ho, 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 the gander laughed. Look at that. The hedgehog has flipped his gizzard. That sounds really fucking dirty. Laugh today, gander, but tomorrow, when it rains, my hat will keep me dry. The gander thought for a moment, and off he ran. The barn cat was watching from a tree as Hedgie tugged at the stocking. Meow, he called down. What a silly-looking hedgehog you are, with that thing on your head. But my ears will be warm in a snowstorm. Purred the cat, and he ran off. The farm dog and her puppies found the Hedgie in a patch of brambles. What? A patch of briars. I've never heard them called brambles outside this story. Hedgie, is that a hat you're wearing? How funny you look, she barked, and her puppies yelled and giggled. But I'll be cozy and dry when it snows, Hedgie said. The farm dog's ears perked up, and off she ran. Hedgie, what is that ridiculous thing on your head? The pony snorted at Hedgie. That was the last straw. It's my hat, of course. Don't you know that everyone should wear a hat in winter when it's cold and snowy? Hedgie shouted. The pony looked startled. Hedgie was usually so friendly, and off he ran. Hedgie just wanted to be alone. He was tired of everyone laughing at him, and with this thing on his head, he wouldn't even fit in his den. He didn't see Lisa running after him, the other stocking in her head. "Come back, you silly hedgehog," she called. Oh no, Hedgie thought. Even the girl is laughing at me. Lisa caught up and pulled her stocking off Hedgie's head. Off Hedgie's head. "You look ridiculous, little hedgehog," she laughed. "Don't you know that animals don't ever wear clothes?" Hedgie headed for his den, and Lisa started back towards the clothesline. That's when she saw all of her missing woolens. The animals had taken them, and each was thinking, "Now I'm wearing a magnificent hat." Lisa was still chasing them when Hedgie reached his den. How ridiculous they look. Don't they know that animals should never wear clothes? That's a cute one. Alright. I didn't think I'd go past 9, but here it is, 9:08, and we still have many stories to go. Two more stories to go. Let's hop right into the next one. Christmas Trolls. This looks like the same girl from the other troll story. I'm Treva, and the day my brother Sammy and I went to our neighbor's farm to pick out a Christmas tree was the beginning of the most unforgettable Christmas I've ever had. As we went home through the forest, with a perfect tree packed on the sleigh, Tuffy started sniffing and barking. I couldn't see anything, but I felt sure someone was watching us. If nothing else, it's the same dog, so. When we arrived home, we forgot all about the forest. Mom and Dad had brought us our boxes of ornaments to decorate the tree. Sammy and I put evergreen wreaths, mistletoe, and holly all around the house. We had already wrapped our presents and hidden them away for Christmas morning. Then, some of our Christmas decorations started to disappear. I didn't notice until Dad asked if we had moved the trinket box. He had hidden for Mom. I shivered because Mom had just asked me the same thing about the mittens she had knitted for Dad. Sammy and I looked all the usual hiding places, but we couldn't find them. Tuffy was acting strange too. He sniffed and barked and ran all around in circles, as if he was looking for something. Then, a few days before Christmas, the treetop angel was gone. What could be next? I started carrying my favorite red horse everywhere. Early the next morning, when I went to feed Arnie, I saw something flying across the snow. It was our Christmas pudding! Arnie is a reindeer, by the way. I harnessed Arnie, bells and all, and raced after into the forest. As I got closer, I could see that our pudding was being carried along, pincushion to the top of a hedgehog. I didn't know what to do, so I yelled, "Stop! Come back!" But it didn't stop until it reached the bottom of the fir trees. The hedgehog put the pudding down and scrambled off. Just then, the trees started rocking back and forth. Suddenly, a funny-looking ladder dropped down from above, and two trolls scurried down, pouncing on the pudding before I could even move. They pulled it back and forth as they went up the ladder, scrambling all the way to the top. I climbed right up after them and looked inside. There, on the floor, was their troll house, or of their there on the floor of their troll house were all of our Christmas things in a heap. The trolls were grabbing at them, each one wanting the other one had. "Hey, trolls!" I called. "Those are our Christmas things." The trolls drove into the pile, clutching our gifts. "Mine!" they clamored. "Mine, mine!" I looked at them and had to smile. Their shirt trails were hanging out, their pants were torn and patched, their cheeks were bright and red, and their hair standing straight up from all the pulling and tugging at each other. "Christmas!" they wailed. "We want Christmas!" "Me too, little ones." "You want Christmas?" I asked, puzzled. "Yes," they shouted. "Give us Christmas." "Well, you can't just take Christmas," I said. The trolls looked surprised, squeaked, they gulped, and they shuffled their feet. "Want Christmas," they said, sounding miserable. "Okay, you can have Christmas, but first, what are your names?" "Mig," one said. "Tig," said the other. I looked around their messy hut. Mig, Tig, let's begin by getting your house ready for Christmas." I started to straighten up and put things away. They began to help. "Nice," I said when we had finished. Now let's make your house look like Christmas." We went outside and gathered evergreens, berries, and pine cones. "Now we need a Christmas tree," I told them. "That's easy. You live in trees, so you can have 4 trees instead of just 1 if you want to." "Christmas trees!" they shouted, jumping up and down. We decorated each of the trees that held up the troll house. Tig and Mig had a small setback on the way back up to the hut. I knew I had some more explaining to do. "When I first got here, you were snatching things for yourselves and acting really grumpy. Try playing together and having some fun." "Fun?" they asked. I showed them how to jump rope. I told them how much I liked their tail knots and earrings. They smiled shyly and started tucking in their shirt tails. "Nice hair, pretty belt," they said, grinning at me, and they taught me a little troll dance. They were catching on. Now, if you really want Christmas, you must be generous with each other. If you do that, you will have Christmas right here in your little troll house." The trolls cocked their heads and squinted. They were trying to understand. "How?" they pleaded. I felt my red nose I felt my red horse in my pocket. I knew I had to show them. So I took it out and gave it to them. This is for you. The trolls squealed and jumped up and down with glee. They took turns passing my horse back and forth, happily playing with it together. It was time for me to go home. I slipped out quietly and climbed down to Arnie. To my surprise, their hedgehog had packed all of our presents into a sleigh for me to take home while we were having Christmas in the troll house. Oh, so the hedgehog was our little minion. On Christmas morning, Sammy and I ran downstairs to find our tree alit with candles. That sounds safe. And our stockings filled. We opened our presents in front of the fire. But this Christmas was full of surprises. I heard bumping and scratching noise. Tuffy barked, and I listened and followed the sounds. Outside on our doorstep was a Christmas present. I unwrapped it and found a wonderful troll horse. Tig and Meg, I exclaimed. When I held it, I knew for sure the trolls understood Christmas, and I knew that this was the best Christmas ever. And then the last story of the night before Christmas. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled, all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there rose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away from the window I flew like a flash, or opened the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave a lustre of midday to the objects below. And when what to my wondering eye should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles, his courses they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they met with an obstacle mount to the sky, so up on the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. Oh, excuse me. Right in the middle of a nice Christmas story, okay. And then when a twinkling I heard on the roof, the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head, I was turning around, down the chimney, St. Nicholas came with a bound. I can read that verse. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he flung on his back, and he looked out like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes how they twinkled, his dimples how merry, his cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke encircled his head like a reef. He had a broad face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed, like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk. And laying a finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh and gave his team a whistle. And then they all flew away like the down on a thistle. But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night." And now I bid you all a good night, and a Merry Christmas.